Okay, so Julius Caesar. As I said, scene-wise key points, important quotes with explanations, literary devices, symbolisms, all these value points is necessary for you to get that above 90%. So when you make those points, it is easier for you to remember when you are going for your exams. So to begin with, um, Act 3. Now, Act 3, Scene 1. What happens in Act 3, Scene 1? Those who have not yet made these, what I'm saying, then please write it down point wise. What are the key points in Act 3, Scene 1? Act 3, Scene 1 can be called as the assassination scene. First and foremost, it is the assassination scene. What are the key points? There is betrayal, there is power, honor, fate versus free will, and private intention. All right. Caesar, first point, key points. Caesar ignores all warnings. In Act 3, Scene 1, he ignores all warnings and he enters the capital. Second point, conspirators kneel pretending to petition. Thirdly, Caesar is stabbed by all the conspirators. Okay, and Brutus stabs Caesar last, which is again very important, and Caesar dies saying A to Brute. Antony cleverly gains permission to speak, and Antony foretells that by killing Caesar, he foretells that there will be a civil war. Therefore, Antony pretends to make peace, but secretly he plans revenge. Brutus' greatest mistake is to allow Antony to speak at Caesar's funeral. All right. So he allows Antony to speak at Caesar's funeral. Now, in Act 3, Scene 1, what are the important quotes? Ashresha, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
What about Ronak? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, what are the important quotes and explanations? Quotes that are important in Act 3, Scene 1. That the quotes of this thing. Cowards die many times before their deaths. That quote is very, very important. Caesar believes himself to be fearless. He believes he is invincible. But then it is dramatic irony because death is imminent. Because he's so arrogant, because he believes he's invincible, he is killed. After all, he is a human being. And because of his such power and such hold on the people of Rome, he had created a lot of enemies. A lot of enemies. Then are we all ready? What is now amiss that Caesar and his Senate must readdress? Metellus, most high, most mighty, and most perverse Caesar, Metellus Simba throws before thy seat, and he kneels. This has already come in the specimen paper last year. So this speech is important, but it did not come for your final. Therefore, this speech is very, very important. Puissant means powerful, mighty. It means powerful, it means mighty. Okay. And specific duties are allotted to all the conspirators. All the specific duties, you have to learn it up. The specific duties allotted to the conspirators. Trebonius has the duty of taking Antony out of the way, ensuring that he would not be next to Caesar. And Casca has been asked to attack first. All this is very important. And Lena speaks to Cassius as they enter the Senate house and addresses him directly, wishing him success in enterprise. But we do not know whether he knows anything or not. But he just wishes him good luck in his enterprise. This makes Cassius, think that the conspiracy has been discovered. Brutus, whom Caesar considered a close friend, turned a betrayer. His betrayal was like a personal tragedy to Caesar, and Caesar could not recover after Brutus stabbed him. So, despite any flaws Caesar might have had, such as ambition or arrogance, he genuinely believed that he was acting at the best interest of Rome, and it was true. His assassination, therefore, if you are given to write your opinion, you will write his assassination was brutal and deceitful, taking place under the guise of friendship and loyalty. It was brutal and deceitful. The ultimate betrayal of Brutus, et tu Brute, then falls Caesar. All these lines are very important. Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. This is the line that I was talking about. Antony predicts chaos and bloodshed in Rome. All right. So he already predicts that. Now, literary devices used. Dramatic irony, Caesar's confidence versus the audience's knowledge. Dramatic irony is used. Metaphor, dogs of war. That is a metaphor. Symbolizing violence. Please underline the literary devices. If you remember to write, underline your keywords. Personification is also used. War as unleashed beasts. That is personification. What does blood signify? Blood signifies moral guilt and political violence. Blood signifies moral guilt and political violence. Caesar's body symbolizes Rome itself is wounded and bleeding. That is what Caesar's body is significant of. The next speech, Caesar, I could be well moved if I were you. If I could pray to move, prayers would move me. When he talks about the northern star. All right. So, what is the significance of Caesar's use of stars? Celestial imagery. What is the significance? Can anybody answer this? What is the use what is the significance of Caesar's use of the northern star, the imagery of celestial bodies? Ashlesha, can you answer?
Uh, he says
Yes
he
or
is unmovable and his decision cannot be changed.
yes? Star is an more or less, yes, you could have put it better, in better words, unchanging force of universe. Okay, so the imagery here, when he uses a celestial imagery, it means that just like a star is an eternal force, it is eternal, it is unchanging. Similarly, Caesar implies, okay, explain Shaurya. Just by writing this, it won't give you the they won't give you the marks. You have to explain properly. All right. So Caesar implies that his role and decisions are divinely ordained. His roles and decisions are divinely ordained and are irreversible, will not be changed, cannot be changed. So this imagery which is grand, this imagery which is grand shows his own self perceived greatness. When you think I am great, you don't wait for others to tell you that you are great. You only say that you are great. So, self perceived greatness and the authority that he has on the people. Therefore, he compares himself to a star. Please remember this. Why does Cassius push others to cry out liberty, freedom, and enfranchisement? He pushes others to cry out liberty, freedom, and enfranchisement. That because he wants to ensure that people perceive, that they understand, that is perception, that they perceive that the assassination to be an act of liberation from tyranny. You have to explain and write. You just can't leave for the examiner to fill in the blanks. So it is an act. He wants the people to perceive the assassination to be an act of liberation from tyranny. Therefore, for public support, he wants everybody to cry out liberty, freedom, and enfranchisement. Therefore, both Brutus and Cassius are wanting to justify their action. All right. So there is a juxtaposition. Juxtaposition means when opposites are paired. What is the opposite here? Personal betrayal with political justification. They have personally betrayed Caesar. They've all betrayed Caesar, acting as his friend and then stabbing him and now they are trying to justify the assassination with political justification. Then comes, O mighty Caesar, dost thou lie so low? That speech. Made rich with the most noble blood of all this world. That is what Antony says. Very important line. You need to quote this line. This line, made rich with the most noble blood of all this world. This line acknowledges of Caesar's greatness, and it also demonstrates his loyalty towards Caesar. Antony's speech, post back with speed and tell him what hath chanced. Here is a morning Rome, a dangerous Rome. No Rome of safety for Octavius yet. Remember, you might be asked character sketches because you have competency-based questions. So what aspects of Antony's character are revealed in this scene? That he is deeply loyal to Caesar. He is politically astute, A-S-T-U-T-E. He knows when to, where to strike. And he is manipulative. Just don't go on writing about manipulation. His loyalty, politically astute, he is manipulative and cunning are the same thing, and he uses rhetoric in his funeral speech, demonstrating his oratory skills, rhetorical. So he uses a lot of rhetoric. And he also plans to avenge Caesar, highlighting his loyalty and personal commitment towards Caesar. Coming to Act 3, Scene 2, the funeral orations. Brutus, what are the key points in Act 3, Scene 2? Brutus speaks logically to justify Caesar's murder. Antony speaks emotionally and turns the crowd. Caesar's will is revealed and riots begin and Rome descends into chaos. So when Brutus says, key quotes, not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more. Here Brutus is appealing to reason and patriotism by calling the Romans friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Antony immediately establishes closeness and emotional appeal. He immediately does that by calling everybody friends, Romans. Irony, where is the irony? Because Antony continuously calls Brutus an honorable man. He repeats it. This is verbal irony. Exposing, what does this verbal irony does? He exposes Brutus's hypocrisy. He's betrayed Caesar and due to political ambition, and now he calls everybody, for everyone to shout that they have he has managed to free them from Caesar, from tyranny. The line that he says, this was most unkindest cut of all. This is the emotional climax when he says this is the most unkindest cut of all. Emotional climax focusing on Brutus's betrayal. So how do rhetorical questions of Antony help in manipulation of the crowds? Please remember, with his use of rhetorical question, Antony is able to manipulate public opinion and pushing them to think for themselves. This is what he does. So he tries to reflect on Brutus's hypocrisy by emotionally appealing through Caesar's wounds, all the wounds that Caesar has had due to the stabbing of so many people. He says that he calls it an emotional appeal, that every wound of Caesar shall be avenged. Caesar's will symbolizes his lasting love for Rome, even though he makes it up, but then it is a testimony against the conspirators. It is a written document, testimony. Please remember the word. It is a testimony against the conspirators. That the conspirators have been proved wrong. They said that they were doing all this to free the people. But Caesar's will shows something totally different. All right. It shows that his will shows that he was a totally different man. He never kept anything for himself. Now, why do you think he does not want to read aloud Caesar's will? That is a competency-based question. Why do you think, Shaurya?
Uh, uh, why don't you ask someone else?
Okay, somebody else. Ayush,
I've already said one.
Yes, ma'am.
that was unnecessary. Please don't do all that. We want to know that. I told you it is being recorded.
Try answering, Ayush.
Ma'am, can you repeat the question?
I said
Even paying
that
attention in the class.
how does this why does Antony mention sorry, he did why does Antony not read the will aloud?
Ma'am, because he doesn't want to disclose the will to the general public, and actually the will is blank, like it's a blank sheet of paper. That's
No,
why.
we don't know for sure, but he
Yes.
withhold. Debatri,
Yes, ma'am.
how will you answer this? Why do you think he does not? Okay, Radhya.
Ma'am, Anthony does not do this because he knows that if we try reading it aloud, the pauses will come because he's reading out of a sheet of paper. He gives a very condensed, interpreted form of what is written in the will. If we read line to line, someone would risk saying that it is a blank sheet of paper because he was not able to frame it what was actually written.
Yes, you are, but then also write this that he withholds the information, increasing the Romans' curiosity. All right. So now when the curiosity is raised, then that means there is interest. Okay. So when your curiosity is raised, then you watch the whole thing, isn't it? Because you want to know the ending. So he does that. That is why I said he's politically astute. He does that by withholding.
Ma'am, ma'am, can you like say like because he's like building suspense and manipulating the Roman crowd to turn
Yes,
them
yes, that
against
is
the
what I'm saying.
conspirators?
Yes, so he is, by hinting that the will holds something important, Antony is fueling the crowd's curiosity and making them more likely to side with him. As I said, you watch when you are curious to know. Now remember, the will is a strategic move. The will presented by Antony is a strategic move, an emotional investment, because the crowd now wants to know the will's content, and thereby they are siding. They forgot about Brutus completely because they want to know what is in the will for them. Who will listen to Brutus now? So Antony has been successful in manipulating the public's sentiment towards Caesar in this speech. He was looking for that and he has done that. Okay, what are the three arguments put forward by Antony that Caesar was not ambitious? There are three arguments. Firstly, Caesar's refusal. I am repeating the question. What are the three arguments put forward by Antony to prove that Caesar was not ambitious? Firstly, Antony points out that Caesar was offered the crown 3 times, but he refused each time, suggesting that Caesar was not ambitious. Second point, Caesar's generosity to the people. Antony mentions that Caesar wept for the poor, showing his compassionate side, another side to him. So Caesar left money to the people in his will. Therefore, you cannot call him an ambitious man. And thirdly, Caesar's refusal to accept praise. Antony reminds the crowd that Caesar, after his military victories, did not act arrogantly or demand excessive praise. Instead, he showed his sense of duty towards Rome. So these three are very important arguments that Antony puts forward. Three ways that Brutus's speech differs from Antony's. What are the three ways that Brutus's speech differs from Antony? Brutus's speech is logical, it is calm, and it appeals to reason. You have to write not what Brutus has said. Why does it appeal? Please read the question properly and answer what they are asking. So, Brutus's speech is logical, calm, and appeals to reason. And he presents the assassination as a noble act done to free the people, done for the greater good of Rome. And Brutus relies on his honor and reputation, justifying the assassination of Caesar. However, Antony is just the opposite. Antony persuades the Romans to think for themselves whether this act is justified or not. He is humble in the beginning. Antony is humble, and he is also criticizing himself. I am no orator, he says, as Brutus is. His humility, he tries to show that he is very humble. The punch will come later. So he begins, that is strategy, does not react in the first line. He builds up the thing and then comes the punch. He describes himself as a plain, blunt man. All right. He speaks in the language that people understand, while Brutus's speech is more formal and, very reasoned approach. But Antony's statement that I love my friend and that they know full well shows his affection and loyalty towards great Caesar. Now coming to Act 3, Scene 3, this is a short scene where mob kills Cinna for his name, showing complete lawlessness, tear him for his bad verses. This is an absurd reasoning. It is a reasoning based on pure hatred and rage. Just because he is not a good poet, just tear him. So, it is a dark comedy here. People are so angry because he has the same name as Cinna, this poet. Mob mentality, it just brings out the mob mentality, blind, irrational violence. Act 4, Scene 1. As I think that Act 4 and Act 5 is more important for your exams, but do not leave anything because nothing can be predicted as such, but concentrate, your focus should be more on Act 4 and 5. The second triumvirate, Act 4, Scene 1 is the second triumvirate. What are the key points? Antony, Octavius, Lepidus, they form an alliance. They plan executions and Antony manipulates Lepidus. He says this is a slight, unmeritable man. Antony sees Lepidus as disposable. He uses an animal imagery. So, what does this scene show? This scene brings out moral decay, that people like Antony and Octavius are willing to throw off people because they are unimportant and they are weak and unimportant. So this scene brings out the moral decay in Rome, which has already been predicted by Antony. Corrupting influence of power. It also shows the corrupting influence of power and how they lack loyalty in leadership. Antony, the second triumvirate between Antony, Octavius and Lepidus, it lacks that kind of loyalty and leadership that was earlier. Now, the scene in Act 4, Scene 2 and 3, Brutus and Cassius's quarrel. Brutus and Cassius quarrel. Cassius feels insulted. Reconciliation after Portia's death. And Caesar's ghost appears to Brutus. All this is important in Act 2 and 3. A friend should bear his friend's infirmities. That is what he tells, that moral superiority of Brutus is shown in this line. Hollow men, like horses hot at hand, make gallant show and promise of their mettle. So all there are in plain and simple faith. All these lines, that they show a lot of mettle, they show a lot of strength, but in actually they have no strength at all. Cassius's speech, Brutus, this sober form of yours hides wrong, and when you do them, why does he call Brutus sober? Because of his calm exterior. He's a stoic, Stoic. He follows the Stoic philosophy, and therefore he has a calm and collected exterior. Cassius, he never shows his emotions. Brutus, he's neither too happy or nor too sad, nothing you won't make out from his face. That is following the Stoic philosophy. And it conceals, therefore Cassius says that it conceals his anger or dissatisfaction. He asks Cassius to speak softly. Speak your griefs softly. Means do not cause disruption. Do not cause a scene in front of the soldiers. He does not want to do that, because it is very important to maintain unity. It is very important to maintain unity and discipline in front of those whom you command. If you are squabbling amongst yourself, then how will those whom you command will listen to you? They will squabble also. So lead by example, as it is said. So all of them need to lead by example. He calls Cassius to enlarge his griefs. Enlarging means to speak freely in his tent. He wants him to come to his tent and speak freely. Now, competency-based question is, what is the relationship between Brutus and Cassius in this speech? When Cassius calls to enlarge his grief, Cassius, be content, speak your grief softly, I do know you well. So, this shows that there is a tension between Brutus and Cassius. Why? Because Cassius is frustrated and feels wronged by Brutus. In the meanwhile, Brutus is trying to maintain composure and resolve and solve the thing diplomatically. Therefore, the need for privacy or privacy. He does not want personal grievances affecting their professional bonding. Therefore, he asks him to come to his tent and speak out. Now comes the ghost scene in Act 4, Scene 3. In Act 4, Scene 3, there is conflict, there is guilt, there is foreshadowing. Brutus and Cassius argue, but then in the end they reconcile. Brutus is haunted by Caesar's ghost, who warns him of the defeat at Philippi. This supernatural figure that appears to Brutus at night, calling itself evil spirit, his evil spirit, and warning that they will meet again at Philippi. This is what is foreshadowing Brutus's downfall. This part is very important, I think, the ghost part and his reaction. What is the metaphor that Brutus uses in this speech? Sheath your dagger, be angry when you will, it shall have scope. O Cassius, you are yoked with a lamb that carries anger as a flint bears fire, who much enforced shows a hasty spark and straight is cold again. Line number, somebody please say the line number. Act 4, Scene 3. Have you found it? Have you found it? Ananya, have you found it? Somebody please say the line number. Be angry when sheath your dagger. Be angry when you will, it shall have scope. Do what you will, dishonor shall be human. O Cassius, you are yoked with a lamb that carries anger as the flint bears fire. Ashlesha, have you found the line?
No, ma'am.
Please find the line. When Brutus and Cassius are arguing, it is somewhere in the middle. Ananya, say the line number. 118. 118. Sheath your dagger, be angry when you will, it shall have scope, do what you will, dishonor shall be human. O Cassius, you are yoked with a lamb that carries anger as the flint bears fire. This is a metaphor. Brutus describes himself. Please write it down. Brutus describes himself as being calm and patient. He describes himself as being calm and patient. And likens himself or compares himself to a lamb, which symbolizes gentleness. Next comparison, he compares his anger to a flint. Stating that when it strikes, when the flint strikes, when two stones are rubbed, that flint, that it's a spark and then it dies down. When a flint, he compares his anger to a flint, stating that when a flint is struck, it produces a spark, but it soon dies down. Here he is comparing his anger to be short-lived. Here he is comparing his anger to be short-lived. So, what does the quarrel expose in their character? The quarrel exposes that there is tension between the two contrasting personalities, Cassius and Brutus. They are both different. Brutus is calm, rational, and forgiving. His anger is also short-lived. He is calm, he is rational, and he is forgiving. His anger is short-lived. Meanwhile, Cassius is emotional and he is prone to dramatic expressions. Now, what were the strategies that they had planned? What were the strategies that Brutus and Cassius had planned in Philippi, and whose strategy was finally adopted? The answer will be Brutus wanted to march to Philippi to confront Antony and Octavius, believing that it would be advantageous to face them before their army grew stronger. While on the other hand, Cassius preferred to wait and let the enemy exhaust themselves by traveling. And whose strategy was adopted? Brutus's strategy was adopted. They marched to Philippi. While Cassius was of the idea to wait and let the enemy exhaust itself by traveling, this far. Now, the metaphor. Again, this metaphor is very important. The tide in the affairs of men. I've made several shorts. Please go through them. The tide in the affairs of men. This is a metaphor. The tide symbolizes perfect moment for action. Under your pardon, you must note besides that we have tried at most of our friends. Our legions are brimful, our cause is right, the enemy increaseth every day. We are at the height, are ready to decline. There is a tide in the affairs of men. This is so often quoted. Please somebody say the line number. Brutus's speech, there is tide in the affairs of men. Ananya, have you found it? Under your pardon, you must note besides that we have tried the utmost of our friends. Yes, Ananya, line number 243. 243. Please underline this. This is a metaphor. Tide symbolizes perfect movement for action. All this might come as your MCQ. And Brutus emphasizes that missing it will result in stagnation. Anything cannot wait. So there's a perfect moment for action, and missing that time, tide and time waits for no man, as the saying goes. So that perfect moment, if missed, will result in stagnation, will result in misery, will result in stagnation. So it symbolizes, this metaphor symbolizes that Brutus is of the belief in seizing opportunities and not wasting time. Then, on such a full sea, we are now afloat. Same passage, 3 or 4 lines later. On such a full sea, we are now afloat. This is a metaphor once more to compare the current situation. Same 243, same lines. Shaurya, have you found the line? Your book is different.
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, on such a full sea, we are now afloat. It is a metaphor to compare the current situation to a ship on a high tide for a successful journey. When the tide is high, then the ship begins its journey. So, what does it symbolize? Why does he use such a line? This metaphor? He uses this line to act, for everybody to act decisively. All right? For everyone to act decisively. Please do the apparition part very well when he sees Brutus's, when Brutus sees Caesar's ghost. That part has to be done very well. It seems important. In the end of Act 4, Brutus seems isolated. His character, if you are being asked at the end of Act 4, Brutus is lonely and he faces the ghost. which shows that he is there's an internal conflict going on, and the burden of leadership and moral responsibility for all the soldiers, burden of leadership and moral responsibilities for all the soldiers is becoming too much for him. Okay, for Julius Caesar, we'll do till here. I want to say that from what I have already discussed earlier, the last few chapters, the last few poems seems more important than the others. Please do not leave The Girl Who Can, Last Lesson, and I think The Pedestrian. These seems very important, and in the poems, all the difficult ones, Haunted Houses, Great Tree, Falls, and The Power of Music. All right. So these seems more important than the others as of now. So please concentrate on that, and I shall take the class again maybe next week if I'm able to take it on Thursday. On Thursday again, I will. And if not, then next I will take it next